2:47 a.m. English Channel. The waters of the English Channel appeared calm under the darkness of the night. Commercial traffic continued along its normal routes, and satellite tracking systems monitored hundreds of vessels moving between European shipping lanes. Among them was a Russian oil tanker known as Smertos. At first glance, nothing about the vessel appeared unusual. It maintained a steady speed, transmitted standard navigation signals, and followed a route that seemed entirely legitimate. Yet far above the clouds, intelligence analysts from NATO, MI6, and the CIA were watching the tanker with growing concern. Several hours earlier, surveillance satellites had detected a sequence of irregular electronic emissions originating from the vessel. The signals were brief, encrypted, and difficult to trace. Alone, they were not enough to justify direct intervention. Together, however, they painted a picture that intelligence agencies could not ignore. As Smertos continued through the channel, radar operators aboard multiple monitoring stations noticed something else. A faint contact appeared behind the tanker. The signal was small, fast, and closing rapidly. Within seconds, analysts confirmed the identity of the approaching craft. British RAGs, rigid hull inflatable boats carrying an SBS Special Operations team. The mission was straightforward. Approach, inspect. Determine whether Smertos was simply another commercial vessel or something far more dangerous. Normally, a suspicious ship would alter course, increase speed, or attempt evasive action when approached by military forces. Smertos did none of those things. The tanker remained perfectly steady. No warnings were transmitted. No crew members appeared on deck. No visible defensive preparations could be observed. To many observers, that calm behavior seemed reassuring. To experienced intelligence officers, it felt deeply unsettling, because vessels preparing to flee usually showed signs of panic. Vessels preparing to fight often showed signs of confidence. And Smertos looked far too confident. As the SBS team continued closing the distance, commanders aboard a nearby Royal Navy Type 26 frigate monitored every movement. The frigate maintained a discreet shadowing position while waiting for further authorization. International maritime law created significant limitations. The vessel was operating in international waters. NATO could observe. NATO could monitor. But NATO could not simply seize the ship without clear justification. For now, the SBS team would provide the answers everyone needed. The Rebs pushed forward through the darkness. Night vision systems scanned the tanker's massive silhouette. Still nothing. No visible threats. No movement. No resistance. Everything appeared normal, until it suddenly was not. 2:55 a.m. Without warning, large sections of Smertos's hull began to move. At first, operators believed they were witnessing maintenance doors opening. Then the panels continued expanding outward. The openings were enormous, far larger than any standard access compartment. Within seconds, hidden cavities inside the tanker became visible. The SBS operators immediately realized something was wrong, very wrong. These were not storage compartments. They were launch bays. Before anyone could react, mechanical platforms descended from inside the vessel. Hydraulic systems extended toward the waterline. Then came the sound. Engines. Powerful engines. One after another, high-speed assault boats erupted from the ship's hidden interior. The boats slammed into the water at full speed. White spray exploded across the surface. The roar of engines shattered the silence of the channel. One boat, then another, then another. 8 attack craft launched almost simultaneously. The formation spread rapidly around the tanker. The SBS team immediately abandoned its inspection approach. This was no longer an inspection mission. It had become a survival mission. Within moments, the assault boats accelerated toward British positions from multiple directions. The realization hit everyone at once. The SBS team had not discovered an ambush. They had entered one. The attackers were not improvising. Every movement appeared rehearsed. Every launch sequence appeared coordinated. Every boat moved according to a predetermined plan. The tanker had been waiting for the British forces to get close, waiting for the perfect engagement range, waiting for the trap to close. The Type 26 frigate immediately increased readiness levels. Combat systems came online. Target tracking software locked onto multiple contacts. But commanders hesitated. The SBS boats were still inside the engagement area. Any mistake could place friendly forces directly in the line of fire. The enemy knew that, and they exploited it perfectly. 3:11 a.m. The situation grew worse. Far worse. Additional compartments on Smertos began opening. This time, something much smaller emerged. Approximately 12 drones launched simultaneously from concealed bays. The aircraft climbed rapidly into the darkness. For several seconds, they appeared to disperse randomly. Then they turned, every drone redirected toward British positions. The attack was now unfolding on multiple levels. Assault boats approached from the surface. Drones descended from above. the SBS force found itself trapped between two synchronized threats. Every attempt to evade one attack created vulnerability to another. Analysts monitoring the engagement began reaching the same conclusion. This operation had been carefully designed. The goal was not merely to intimidate. The goal was to overwhelm, to create confusion, to divide attention, to force multiple threats into the same combat space simultaneously. The encirclement tightened. Minute by minute, meter by meter, tactical displays aboard the Type 26 became increasingly crowded. New drone signatures appeared continuously. Assault boats kept advancing. The available maneuvering space shrank, and despite possessing superior technology, British forces found themselves losing control of the battlefield. For a brief but critical period, the ambush force dictated every movement, every decision, every reaction. 3:23 a.m. Help finally arrived. The first A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft entered the area. Their arrival immediately altered the strategic picture. The famous attack aircraft carried enough firepower to destroy nearly every surface threat in the engagement zone. Yet a new problem emerged. The enemy had anticipated that possibility as well. The assault boats had closed dangerously close to the SBS formation. From the air, friend and foe appeared intertwined. The A-10 pilots could see targets, but they could not safely engage them. Any attack risked hitting Allied forces. The aircraft circled overhead searching for an opening. None appeared. Below them, the trap continued tightening. At the same time, an EA-18G Growler participating in nearby NATO exercises received emergency deployment orders. The electronic warfare aircraft immediately altered course toward the channel. Its mission was simple: break the enemy's coordination, disrupt the ambush, to restore NATO's control of the engagement. But before the Growler could arrive, the attackers revealed another surprise. 3:32 a.m. Several assault boats suddenly changed formation. Instead of maintaining distance, they charged directly toward the SBS cluster. The maneuver seemed reckless. Then analysts understood the objective. The boats were deliberately mixing with British forces, creating an environment where air power became nearly useless. At that exact moment, launch compartments on the attack boats opened. A flash illuminated the darkness, then another, and another. Missiles erupted from the sea surface. Fan pads, portable anti-aircraft systems. The missiles streaked upward toward the circling A-10s. Pilots reacted instantly. Flares exploded from aircraft wings. Heat decoys scattered across the sky. Combat formations broke apart. Sharp evasive turns filled the darkness. One aircraft banked violently. Another climbed aggressively. Missiles chased heat signatures through the night. The battlefield had transformed completely. What began as a maritime inspection had become a full-scale multi-domain confrontation. Air, sea, and electronic warfare, all colliding inside a single corridor of water, and the most dangerous phase of the battle was still approaching. 3:41 a.m. The battle over the English Channel was entering its most dangerous phase. Above the water, A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft continued maneuvering through a sky filled with missile trails and burning flares. Below them, SBS teams struggled to maintain formation while hostile assault boats pushed closer from multiple directions. The pilots could clearly see the targets, but seeing them and engaging them were two very different things. The enemy boats had deliberately mixed themselves among British positions, creating a battlefield where every firing solution carried serious risk. One mistake could place friendly forces directly in the line of fire. As a result, the A-10s were forced to remain patient. They circled overhead. They tracked targets. They waited for an opening. Yet the opening never came. The ambush force continued exploiting every second of hesitation. Then the situation changed again. As several assault boats came under increasing pressure, Smertos activated another layer of its defense network. This one could not be seen from the air, and it could not be stopped with conventional weapons. 3:50 a.m. Deep inside the vessel, hidden electronic warfare systems came online. Within seconds, powerful jamming signals spread across the engagement zone. The impact was immediate. Aboard the Type 26 frigate, tracking displays began behaving erratically. Contacts shifted positions. Target markers duplicated themselves. Navigation data flickered across multiple screens. Operators watched in frustration as systems repeatedly gained and lost target lock. For several moments, nobody could fully trust what they were seeing. The electronic attack grew stronger. One radar contact appeared hundreds of meters from its actual location. Another seemed to split into multiple signatures. Warnings flashed across combat consoles throughout the operations center. The confusion quickly spread beyond the frigate. Overhead, A-10 pilots reported abnormalities in their targeting systems. Displayed positions no longer matched visual observations. Some attack runs had to be aborted entirely. Others required pilots to switch to backup operating modes in order to maintain reliable navigation. The enemy was attacking NATO's awareness of the battlefield itself. And for a brief period, it worked. Down on the water, the S-teams were forced to make rapid course corrections based on constantly changing information. The hostile boats took advantage of every hesitation, every false contact, every delayed reaction. The pressure on British forces increased once again. 3:54 a.m. At that critical moment, help arrived. An EA-18G Growler entered the combat zone. Unlike the A-10s, the Growler had been designed specifically for electronic warfare. Its mission was not to destroy targets with missiles. Its mission was to destroy the enemy's control of the electromagnetic spectrum. As soon as it arrived, the aircraft began scanning the engagement zone. Electronic warfare specialists searched through layers of interference, separating genuine signals from false emissions. The process was slow, methodical, and extremely difficult. Smertos was flooding the area with overlapping transmissions designed to confuse anyone attempting to identify the true source. But the Growler kept searching, signal by signal, frequency by frequency. Gradually, a pattern began to emerge. Among hundreds of emissions, one cluster appeared different from the others, stronger, more organized, more important. The Growler focused its sensors on that location. Within moments, analysts concluded they had likely found the primary source of the jamming attack. Electronic countermeasures were immediately directed toward the signal. For a brief moment, the transmission weakened. Then it vanished. But Smertos reacted quickly. The signal suddenly reappeared elsewhere, then somewhere else again. False locations flooded the spectrum. Ghost signals appeared across multiple frequencies. The ship was fighting back electronically. What followed was a high-speed contest between NATO analysts and the vessel's hidden electronic systems. Each side attempted to outmaneuver the other. Each side tried to gain control of the battlefield. Gradually, however, the Growler began gaining ground. False emissions were eliminated one after another. Potential source locations narrowed. The search area became smaller. And then, finally, the real signal was exposed. The lock lasted only seconds. But seconds were enough. The Growler immediately concentrated its suppression efforts on the confirmed source. The pressure on Smertos increased dramatically. Then something unexpected happened. The vessel transmitted one final encoded pulse. The signal appeared briefly. A single burst, short, precise, and directed toward the open sea. Moments later, it disappeared completely. No further transmissions followed. The message was gone, but its consequences would soon become clear. 4:05 a.m. a new warning suddenly appeared aboard the Type 26. This time it came from sonar operators. Multiple underwater contacts had been detected. The tracks were moving rapidly toward the formation. Unlike conventional submarines, these objects showed no interest in remaining hidden. They accelerated directly through the water, maintaining aggressive courses toward British positions. The threat level immediately increased. Additional sensors were redirected underwater. Warning messages spread throughout the task force. The Merlin HM-2 helicopter launched from the frigate and began deploying sonar buoys across the channel. One after another, the sensors entered the water, creating a growing detection network. The underwater contacts continued moving, splitting apart, rejoining, changing formations. The behavior looked strangely familiar. Just like the assault boats above the surface, these underwater assets appeared designed to overwhelm tracking systems through coordinated movement. The pattern suggested a carefully planned operation rather than a collection of independent threats. Above the battle, A-10 pilots assisted with surveillance efforts. Initially, they saw nothing unusual. Then subtle disturbances appeared on the water. Long trails, unnatural movements, evidence of fast-moving objects beneath the surface. Coordinates were immediately passed to the Type 26. The search area narrowed. The pressure on the underwater contacts increased. 4:18 a.m. The situation reached another turning point. The underwater tracks suddenly accelerated. One group attempted to cross directly in front of British positions. Another tried to exploit gaps between sonar coverage zones. Merlin crews responded immediately. Additional buoys entered the water. Detection fields overlapped. Escape routes began disappearing. The underwater force continued pushing forward. But now, NATO was regaining control. Above the surface, drone formations showed signs of instability. Assault boats began losing coordination. The electronic attack that had disrupted the battlefield only minutes earlier was weakening. The network behind the ambush was beginning to break apart, and NATO finally saw an opportunity. Attention shifted back towards Smertos itself. No additional boats were launching. No new drones appeared. The vessel had exhausted its offensive options. What remained active were the systems responsible for coordinating the entire operation. Communication arrays, Sensor clusters. Command equipment. The heart of the ambush. The A-10 squadron received updated targeting data. This time the firing solution was clear. There would be no confusion, no interference, no delay. AGM-65 Maverick missiles were cleared for launch. One after another, the weapons separated from their aircraft and accelerated toward the target. The first impact struck a communication cluster positioned along the deck. The explosion tore through critical equipment. The second missile destroyed a major sensor array. The third ripped into exposed command and control systems. Additional strikes followed. Each impact removed another piece of the vessel's coordination network. The effect spread across the battlefield almost immediately. Drone formations lost synchronization. Attack boats began operating independently. Previously coordinated maneuvers dissolved into confusion. Without command signals, the entire ambush force started falling apart. The battlefield that had once seemed carefully controlled by Smertos was now slipping beyond its reach. 4:35 a.m. The confrontation was effectively over. Smertos drifted through the English Channel without meaningful response. No active transmissions remained. No coordinated activity could be detected. The vessel had been isolated. The Type 26 moved into a control position while SBS teams established a secure perimeter around the area. Boarding units approached cautiously. This time there was no resistance. Specialists entered technical compartments and secured surviving equipment. Data modules were removed. Communication systems were isolated. Evidence was collected for detailed analysis. As dawn approached, the vessel was escorted toward a British military port under heavy supervision. What investigators discovered raised troubling questions. Initial findings suggested that Smertos was far more than a conventional oil tanker. The vessel appeared capable of launching drones, deploying assault craft, conducting electronic warfare operations, and coordinating underwater assets while disguised as an ordinary commercial ship. For NATO planners, the implications were impossible to ignore. If one platform had remained hidden until now, how many others might still be operating across international shipping routes? And perhaps more importantly, was this the end of a single ambush, or the first glimpse of a much larger network still waiting to be uncovered?